Your sales success was determined by the time you were 8 years old, and even though it's not your fault, it's probably costing you thousands of dollars a month. I had this weird thing when I first started in sales where I would hop on these calls and it'd be going great. I was able to build great rapport. These people were a great fit for the product. But then something would happen every time I would go to ask for the sale or to talk about money. And I didn't understand what was happening at the time, but in the moment, I would feel this anxiety bubbling up in my chest and my throat start to constrict. And it showed up in a few different ways where I would either kind of rush past that point or I would completely avoid asking for the sale, which is not a great strategy when you're in sales. More often than not, I would state the price and then immediately go into explaining things that didn't even matter. I would talk about features. I would try to logic my way into the close. I would justify the price. I would justify my own value. Anything to stay away from that awkward silence. And I didn't realize what was happening. I thought maybe I just needed more confidence. I thought maybe I just needed to practice more. Maybe I needed a better script. Maybe I just needed to memorize my lines a little bit more. And I spent hours doing those things. And little did I know, it was kind of a waste of time, honestly. Now, more recently, I had a friend who had a very similar experience that was showing up in a different way, where she was getting on calls with people and was great at connecting with them, great at talking about them, about their problems, about what they're looking to solve. But then when it came time to talk about her and her offer, it was like a flip switched. And she would completely disconnect and go blank. Her voice would go cold. She would start to sound robotic. She would revert to her autopilot, her baseline programming, and just completely blank out. Now, all of the trust that she had built in the call up until this point was completely thrown out the window, and it started costing her a lot of deals. And the weird part was that she didn't understand why. She didn't know what was happening underneath the surface. So she started second guessing herself and started having thoughts of like, well, maybe I'm just not cut out for sales. There's something wrong with me, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this is the shadow rep that I talk about. That second rep living inside of us that pops up out of nowhere. Comes from our programming as kids. With her, we were able to trace hers back to about age 6, where there was a program installed that said if she puts herself out there, she risks losing connection. It was a fear of rejection. And it was showing up 20, 30 years later in a sales call, where there's no danger present and there's no threat. For me, I was able to trace mine back to about the same age, and it was a limiting belief around money and what it means to talk about money. Now, unfortunately, traditional sales training does not teach this. It does not cover this at all. But it is one of the most important things because it doesn't matter how much training you do, what frameworks you're using, what scripts you're using, what questions you're asking. Without addressing these underlying programs that are running underneath the surface, then everything's going to be harder than it needs to be, and you're always going to be fighting resistance on every single call every time they show up. So the first step is to become aware of what's actually happening. We can't change anything until we're aware of it and we name it. If you need some help with that, I built a free tool where in just 5 minutes you can expose the shadow rep that's living inside of you. I'll link it below if you want to check it out. Leave a comment below and let me know what comes up for you. Really curious.